I walked into my lake house on a Tuesday afternoon and found my sister-in-law painting my living room walls sage green. She had drop cloths on my hardwood floors, blue painter's tape on my window frames, and a woman I'd never seen before, arranging fabric samples on my grandmother's dining table. My front door, the one I'd locked that morning, was wide open. Before we continue, make sure you subscribe, like, and share this story because what happens next will leave you absolutely speechless. Megan, thank God you're here, my sister-in-law, Diane said, not even putting down the roller. I need your opinion. Do you think the sage works better in here? Or should we go warmer, like a terracotta? The designer says sage photographs better, but I think terracotta feels more like a retreat space. I set my grocery bags on the floor. My hands were shaking, but my voice came out flat and calm. Diane, what are you doing in my house? She laughed. Don't be dramatic. I told you we were coming up this week. You told me you wanted to visit for Memorial Day weekend. That's 3 weeks from now. And you definitely didn't tell me you were redecorating. The woman at my dining table stood up and extended her hand. She had a portfolio under her arm and a measuring tape around her neck. Hi. I'm Suzanne from Lakeside Interiors. You must be the sister. Diane's told me so much about the property. It's a gorgeous space. So much potential. The sister. Not the owner. The sister. I looked at Diane. She'd gone back to painting, rolling sage green over the warm white walls I'd painted myself 2 summers ago, the color I'd chosen because it matched the birch trees outside the kitchen window. Let me back up. My name is Megan Calloway. I'm 38 years old, and I'm a veterinarian with a small practice in Madison, Wisconsin. 4 years ago, my grandfather passed away and left me his lake house on Lake Geneva. Not my mother, not my brother, not my husband. Me. Specifically me. Because I was the one who drove up every single weekend for 6 years to check on him after Grandma died. I was the one who sat with him through chemo. I was the one who learned to fix his dock and winterize his pipes and cook his pot roast the way he liked it, with the carrots cut thick and the onions caramelized until they were almost black. The will was clear. The lake house goes to my granddaughter, Megan Elaine Calloway, free and clear, with no conditions or encumbrances. My attorney had a copy. I had a copy. The county recorder's office had a copy. There was exactly one name on that deed, and it wasn't Diane's. Now back to my living room, where my sister-in-law was painting walls she didn't own in a house she had no claim to. Diane, stop painting. Right now. She finally set the roller down, but she did it slowly, like she was humoring a child having a tantrum. Megan, relax. We talked about this. Tyler and I are going to be using the lake house more now that he's working remotely. We discussed it at Easter dinner. What we discussed at Easter dinner 2 months earlier was Diane mentioning, casually, over my mother-in-law's ham, that Tyler's company had gone fully remote and wouldn't it be nice to spend some summers at the lake? And I'd said, sure, you're welcome to visit anytime. Just give me a heads up. Visit. Not move in, not renovate, not hire an interior designer. Diane, I said, where did you get a key to my house? She waved her hand. Ryan gave us a copy months ago. He said it was fine. Ryan, my husband. I pulled out my phone and called him. He picked up on the second ring, which meant he knew this call was coming. Hey Meg, what's up? Your sister is in my lake house, painting my walls green. Did you give her a key? Silence. The kind of silence that tells you everything. Okay, listen. She asked if she could have a copy for emergencies. I didn't think it was a big deal. She's not here for an emergency, Ryan. She's here with an interior designer. She's ripping tape off my window frames right now. She's just excited. You know how she gets. She and Tyler are going through a rough patch financially, and she thought getting out of the city would help them reset. I told her she could use the place for a few weeks this summer. A few weeks. Ryan. She has a designer, picking out furniture. There are paint swatches taped to every wall in the kitchen. She's not visiting. She's moving in. You're overreacting. I'm looking at sage green paint on my living room wall right now. The wall I painted white 2 years ago. Am I overreacting about that too? He didn't answer. I'll be home in 3 hours, I said. Do not call your sister before I get there. I hung up and turned to Diane, who was pretending to organize fabric samples but had clearly been listening. Diane, you and Suzanne need to leave. Now. Suzanne was already packing up. She could read a room, but Diane planted her feet. Megan, I know this is your grandfather's house, but it's a family property now, Ryan said. It's not a family property. It's my property. One name on the deed, mine. You're being incredibly selfish. Tyler and I are struggling. We lost our apartment lease, and we can't afford anything in the city right now. Ryan said we could stay here through the summer, maybe longer, until we get back on our feet. And instead of helping family, you're throwing a fit about paint. You're painting my walls without permission, in a house you don't own, with a key you got behind my back, and I'm the one being selfish? Her eyes went hard. This is what you've always been, Megan. You hoard everything. The Lakehouse, your time, your attention. You married into this family, but you've never actually been part of it. Suzanne slipped out the front door without a word. Smart woman. I'm going to say this once, I said. Get your things, get your paint, and get out of my house. If you want to visit as a guest, you can call me and ask like an adult. But this? I gestured at the walls, the drop cloths, the stack of home magazines she'd left on my coffee table. This is done. She grabbed her purse, her binder of designs, and her car keys. As she walked past me, she stopped. Ryan will fix this, she said. He always does. She was wrong about that. The drive back to Madison gave me time to think. I called my attorney from the car and asked her to pull the deed and send me a digital copy. Then I called a locksmith in Lake Geneva and scheduled a recce for the next morning. Then I made a list of every single thing I was going to say to my husband when I got home. Ryan was sitting at the kitchen table when I walked in. He had that look on his face, the one that said he knew he was wrong but was going to try to make it my fault anyway. Before you start, he said, I know you're upset. You gave your sister a key to my house without telling me. Our house. No. My house. My grandfather left it to me. My name is on the deed. We've been over this. We're married, Megan. What's yours is mine. That's not how inherited property works. And you know it. My attorney explained this to both of us when Grandpa's estate was settled. He rubbed his face. Diane and Tyler are in a really bad spot. Tyler lost his job 4 months ago. They've been burning through savings. They couldn't renew their lease because their credit score tanked. I was trying to help my sister by giving her my house, by letting her stay at a place that sits empty most of the time. It doesn't sit empty. I'm there every other weekend. I work on my garden there. I see my neighbors. I maintain the dock. I keep Grandpa's workshop organized. It's not sitting empty just because you don't come with me. That stung him, and I meant it too. Ryan had stopped coming to the Lakehouse a year into our marriage. He said it was boring, that there was nothing to do, that he didn't understand why I spent every free weekend up there. He didn't understand because he'd never had a place like that. He didn't grow up with a grandfather who taught him to fish off a dock at sunrise, or a grandmother who let him eat ice cream for breakfast on vacation mornings. Okay, he said slowly. Maybe I should have asked you first. But would you have said yes? Probably not to an open-ended move-in with a full renovation plan. Maybe to a weekend visit. See, that's the problem. You would have said no. So I went around you, because my sister needed help, and you would have been too rigid to give it. I stared at him. You went around me, on purpose. For family. Your family. Not mine. Because let me be really clear about something. Ryan. That Lakehouse is the last thing I have from my grandfather. The only person in my life who ever made me feel like I mattered exactly as I was, and you decided, without asking me, to give it to someone else. That's not helping your family. That's stealing from me. He flinched. I'm not stealing anything. Diane had a contractor's number in her phone, Ryan. She showed me. She was going to rip out the kitchen cabinets next week. Your grandfather's kitchen cabinets. The ones he built with his own hands in 1971. She was going to replace them with something from a catalog. He opened his mouth, closed it again. Did you know about the renovation? I asked. She mentioned wanting to update a few things. Update a few things. She wanted to gut the entire first floor. She has good taste. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She has good taste? That's your response. Your sister broke into my house, started painting walls, hired a designer, and your defense is that she has good taste. She didn't break in. She had a key. A key you gave her without my knowledge or consent. He stood up. You know what? I'm done apologizing for trying to help my family. If you can't understand that family helps each other, then maybe we have a bigger problem. Maybe we do. That shut the conversation down for the night. The next morning, I drove back to Lake Geneva. The locksmith was waiting for me at 9. I had every lock changed. Front door, back door, garage side entry, the shed out back. I also called a security company and had cameras installed at every entrance, linked to my phone. While they worked, I repainted the living room wall back to warm white. It took 2 coats to cover the sage green. I was rolling the second coat when my phone rang. It was my mother-in-law, Jeanette. "Megan, honey, we need to talk about this situation with Diane." "What situation is that, Jeanette?" "She says you threw her out of the Lakehouse. She's very upset. I asked her to leave my property after she entered it without permission and started making unauthorized changes. She was trying to make it nicer. You should be grateful. Grateful that someone painted my walls without asking. It's a family house, Megan. Your grandfather would have wanted it used. My grandfather wanted it left to me. Specifically. That's why he put it in his will. Don't be legalistic about this," Ryan says. "Ryan doesn't own this house. He has no authority over it, and neither do you." Long pause. "You know, Megan, you've always been difficult. Even when you were dating Ryan, you always had to have things your way. The wedding, the holidays, where you spend your weekends. Everything has to be about what Megan wants. I want to keep the house my grandfather left me. If that makes me difficult, I'll take it. Diane and Tyler have nowhere to go. They're adults. They can figure it out." She hung up on me. Over the next 2 weeks, I got 14 text messages from Diane, 6 voicemails from Jeanette, and 1 very long email from Tyler, who I'd spoken to maybe 10 times in my entire life, explaining that I was tearing the family apart by being territorial about a house I only use part-time. Ryan and I barely spoke. He slept in our bed but turned away from me every night. He ate dinner in front of the TV instead of at the table. When I tried to talk about counseling, he said I was the one with the problem, not him. Then, 3 weeks after the painting incident, I got a call from my neighbor at the lake. Helen, 72 years old, lived 3 houses down. She'd known my grandfather for 40 years. "Megan, there's a moving truck at your place." "I'm sorry?" "A moving truck. 2 people are carrying furniture inside. A blonde woman let them in." My blood went cold. "I'm 2 hours away, Helen. Can you go over there and tell them to stop?" "I already tried, honey. The woman said she's your sister-in-law and she's authorized to be here. She has some kind of document she showed me. It looked official." I called the Lake Geneva Police Department while driving 90 miles an hour up I-43. Then I called my attorney. Then I called Ryan. He didn't pick up. I called again. Voicemail. 3rd time, he answered. "Yeah. Did you give Diane another key to my lake house?" Silence. "Ryan, did you call the locksmith and get a copy of the new key?" "The locksmith wouldn't give me one. You're not on the deed." "So I found the spare you keep in the garage. In the toolbox. You went through my things. You found my spare key. And you gave it to your sister. After everything we talked about. She has nowhere else to go. Megan, what was I supposed to do? Not steal from your wife. That was an option." I hung up and drove faster. When I got to the lake house, there was indeed a moving truck in the driveway. Diane was directing 2 movers to carry a couch through my front door. My couch. My grandfather's brown leather Chesterfield that he'd had since 1985 was already on the front lawn. She looked up when I pulled in, and for just a second, I saw panic on her face. Then she straightened up. "Megan, before you freak out." I didn't freak out. I walked past her, past the movers, and into my house. The living room had been rearranged. My grandfather's bookshelves had been emptied. His books were in boxes on the kitchen floor. A new gray sectional was halfway through the front door. I pulled out my phone and showed the police officer the deed. I'd had it scanned into my phone the week before. I also showed him the will, the property tax bill with my name on it, and the security camera footage from 2 hours earlier showing Diane unlocking the door with a key I never gave her. The officer turned to Diane. "Ma'am, do you have any documentation showing you have a legal right to be here?" She pulled out a piece of paper. It was a typed letter on no letterhead that said, "I, Ryan Mitchell, Hereby grant permission for my sister Diane Mitchell Cooper and her husband Tyler Cooper to reside at the Lake Geneva property at my wife's address. Effective immediately. He signed that, Diane said. He's her husband. He has the right. The officer looked at me. Ma'am, is your husband on the deed? No. It's inherited property. Solely in my name. He looked at the letter. Then at Diane. Ma'am, this letter has no legal standing. The property owner is asking you to leave. If you don't, this becomes a trespassing issue. Diane's face went white, then red. This is insane. Ryan said this was fine. He told us we could live here. The property owner is telling you it's not fine. You need to remove your belongings and vacate. It took 4 hours. The movers, who I felt genuinely sorry for, had to load everything back onto the truck. Diane called Ryan 17 times while they worked. She called her mother. She called Tyler, who apparently was at a job interview in Milwaukee and had no idea this was happening today. Or so he claimed. When the truck finally pulled away, I found Diane sitting in her car, in my driveway, crying. Part of me felt bad. A very small part. I knocked on her window. She rolled it down. Diane, I don't hate you. But you need to understand something. This house is not yours. It will never be yours. My grandfather left it to me, because I earned it. 6 years of weekends, holidays, and hospital visits. I earned every single board and nail in this place. And no one, not you, not Ryan, not your mother, gets to take that from me. She wiped her eyes. We're going to lose everything, Megan. Tyler hasn't worked in 5 months. We're living on credit cards. I don't know what we're going to do. I'm sorry you're struggling. But the answer isn't taking my house. She drove away without another word. That night, I sat at my grandfather's kitchen table, the one with the burn mark from when he'd set a hot skillet down in 1993, and Grandma had yelled at him for 20 minutes, and I called a divorce attorney. Not because of the house. Because of the letter. My husband had written a document granting someone else permission to live in my property. He'd signed his name to it. He presented it as though it carried legal authority. He hadn't just gone behind my back. He tried to create a paper trail that would undermine my ownership. My attorney reviewed it the next morning. This is concerning, she said. It has no legal power, but the intent is clear. He was trying to establish a claim of marital interest in your inherited property. If they'd lived there long enough, things could have gotten complicated. What do you mean? If Diane and Tyler had established residency, even informally, evicting them would have required a formal process. And if Ryan had been contributing to maintenance or taxes on the property, he could have argued for a marital interest in the appreciation. Someone advised him on this. This wasn't his idea. Whose idea was it? I'd start by looking at whoever told Diane the Lakehouse was available in the first place. It took me a week to find out. I was going through our joint credit card statements, looking for something else entirely, when I saw it. A charge from 4 months ago, $350 to a company called Great Lakes Property Consulting. I looked them up. They were a real estate advisory firm that specialized in, and I quote, maximizing family property assets. I called them, pretended I was a potential client, asked what kind of services they offered. Oh, we help families navigate situations where property ownership and family needs don't quite align, the receptionist said cheerfully. Especially with inherited properties, vacation homes, that sort of thing. We consult on strategies for shared use, residency, establishment, and equitable access. Strategies for residency establishment. That meant coaching people on how to move into houses they didn't own and create legal footing to stay. I pulled more statements. There were 2 more charges. One for $700, one for $450. Over $1,500 total. Ryan had paid a company to figure out how to get his sister into my house. When I confronted him, he didn't even try to lie. Diane was desperate, he said. Tyler found this company online. They said if she could establish residency and show that the property was being used as a family asset, it would strengthen her position. And ours. Ours? There is no ours. I own that house. We're married. Everything is shared. Not inherited property. Your own consultant should have told you that. He looked at the floor. How long have you been planning this? I asked. Since January. 5 months. He'd been plotting for 5 months. Every time he'd kissed me goodnight. Every time he'd asked about my weekend at the lake. Every time he'd said, I love you, He'd been running a parallel plan to take my home. I filed for divorce the next day. He didn't fight it. I think some part of him knew it was over the moment I found those credit card charges. We split everything down the middle, everything that was actually shared, and I kept the Lakehouse, because it was never his to take. Diane and Tyler moved to a smaller apartment in Racine. Tyler eventually found work as a warehouse supervisor. Diane never apologized. Jeanette called me once, 3 months after the divorce was finalized, to tell me I'd destroyed her family. You destroyed your family, I said, by raising a son who thought it was okay to steal from his wife. She hung up. That was 8 months ago. I still drive up to Lake Geneva every other weekend. I still tend my grandfather's garden. I still sit on his dock at sunrise with coffee in the mug he used to use, the blue one with the chipped handle that Grandma always threatened to throw away. Last month, I finished restoring his workshop. New wiring, proper ventilation, all his tools cleaned and organized exactly the way he kept them. I hung his old plaid jacket on the hook by the door, the one that still smells like sawdust and Old Spice. There's a security system now, cameras on every door, new deadbolts with keys that only I have. And on the wall in the front hallway, right where anyone walking in would see it, I framed 2 things. The property deed with my name on it, and a photo of my grandfather and me, standing on the dock the summer I turned 12, both of us holding fishing rods and grinning like idiots. Nobody's tried to take my house since, but if they do, they'll see exactly whose name is on that wall. Megan Elaine Calloway, sole owner. Not sorry, because here's what I learned. When someone tells you they're helping family, check whose family they're actually helping. When someone says what's yours is theirs, show them the deed. And when your own husband hires a company to figure out how to take your inheritance, you don't go to counseling. You go to a lawyer. Some things aren't worth saving. But a house your grandfather built with his own hands? That's worth fighting for. Every single time.